Welcome to Amateur Hour Sports. I'm your host, Trent, with my co-host, Jake here. We got a big free agency video for you. We got a lot to talk about. Bills, NFL, top free agents. And we're doing this in the middle of a quarantine, so it should be pretty fun.
Yeah.
There's what's going on, so we appreciate you, rolling with us and sticking with us during this time. Jake, anything you want to start off with?
It's been, a long hiatus since we last made a video, but a lot has changed, being in quarantine and all. But I hope everyone out there is safe and, social distancing and, no sports on TV. So you guys can just come to our videos and keep up with all the latest on free agency and the upcoming draft.
Let's kick it off with the Bills. Bills made quite a few moves this offseason so far. Most notably, trading for Stefon Diggs, wide receiver from the Vikings. Stefon Diggs, there's a lot to like about him. I think the Bills finally got their number one guy and puts him in a room with John Brown, Cole Beasley. They did trade, quite a lot of assets. First round pick, fifth round pick, sixth round pick, and then a fourth round pick next year. And then they also got a seventh round pick back from the Vikings. But overall, if that's what you got to trade for number one guy, like that seems like a reasonable price for a guy like Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, especially the fact that we were, that's the one thing that we always hit on in our past videos was that need for that guy who can just take it over the top and such a good route runner. And Stefon Diggs is, one of the top route runners, and his speed is unmatched, I think, in my opinion. Definitely in the NFC the past year. But, if you think about it, and we're going to go over these acquisitions that we made, we signed some guys from free agency that we probably would have, used on those draft picks. So it's kind of evening out. So I wouldn't say obviously you want to have those draft assets, but, with free agency, you can kind of make it up to that. And the guys that we're picking up have experience in the NFL, so a little more low risk.
Yeah, when you think about it, giving up the draft capital, it's like the Bills made their first round pick with Stefon Diggs.
Yeah.
They made him at 22, and to be honest, at 22, we'll talk about another video with all the wide receivers in this draft, but you weren't going to get one of those top three guys anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
a guy so proven.
Yeah, this guy's proven. He has back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He's a top 10 receiver in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
And I think this move just shows that the Bills are, thinking about this season, maybe next season, as a short little window, this 2-year period where they're going to go for it and go for it big. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. I think, when have we ever been in a position where we're like, we're going to go for it this year?
Yeah, and this is a move like definitely Tom Brady leaving the Patriots. This is a move that is like, all right, this is our division. Like, we're going to own it. And I love that. And my point also is, with the 22nd pick in the first round, that's not a top 10 pick. And the guys in the top 10, those guys are proven to be like stars in the NFL, most likely. And we have the 22nd pick. Who says that all those good wide receivers that we were looking for in this draft were going to even be there? So, I think this is the safe pick. This is a big baller bean move.
Yeah,
that's what I like to say.
Dude, I agree too. I was stoked when I found that out. Like, I was freaking out. I was screaming around the thing. I went on Madden. I traded Stefon Diggs to my Madden team, and I was just like jamming out. It's awesome. It's like, to be honest, I feel a lot safer with Stefon Diggs than I would, a rookie receiver who has to develop. I don't know. It's just a safer bet. Like we just said, it's a win now move, and I think that's where the Bills are. We don't want to wait a couple of years for a wide receiver to develop.
100%. Do you think, like going back to this year, he had some, questionable character issues, as missing practices and having some arguments with Kirk Cousins. Do you think that is a one-time thing, or do you think we should kind of be worried about him and the culture that we have, or do you think he'll be just fine?
Yeah, there's two ways you can think about it. One, that's probably the biggest concern out of this whole thing is just like his attitude. It was coming up last season. I don't really think it was, a huge deal in his past. I think, he was frustrated with whatever was going on in Minnesota, and I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a recurring thing, but also to the culture standpoint of the Bills, why you have a strong culture is because, you have a lot of guys that buy in, whatever, but that allows you to get somebody who maybe isn't, the best attitude, whatever, but you can bring him in your culture and your culture is going to be fine. Like
Yeah,
that is established, it's not like he's going to just tear apart the locker room. It's like we
that's
have
true.
set
Yeah,
leaders,
good point.
like I think there's a big enough foundation in the culture that it's like, it's not going to be a move, where he's like
Yeah,
destroying our locker room sort of thing. So
yeah.
yeah, I
I
mean,
think
it's something to keep in mind, but
yeah. I also, and like kind of a more extreme approach. My other concern with him is he's a dome player. I mean, 8 games a year he's in the dome.
okay.
So, we gotta like look out for that at the end of the season,
Yeah,
how he holds up durability wise, and like hits are gonna hurt a lot more in the cold than they will in the
true.
dome towards the end of the season. And is he gonna be that tough receiver, or is he kind of gonna be like a prima donna?
Yeah,
So I'll be looking for that a little bit, but
okay.
I don't really worry about it too much.
Yeah, no, neither do I. Overall, just great move, and we made a bunch of other moves too. Early on, we signed Josh Norman, who's probably the biggest name other than Stephon Diggs that we signed, to 1-year deal. We also got Mario Addison, who's 32 years old, but he's had 9 sacks each of the last 4 seasons, at
Yeah,
least 9 sacks. AJ Klein to fill in for that strong linebacker spot. Tyler Matakevich, I believe. He's a special teams
Matakovich.
guy,
Yeah.
something like that. uh, Quentin Jefferson, who Stephon Diggs was traded, but Quentin Jefferson could probably be our best free agency signing
Oh yeah.
coming over from Seattle Seahawks. And he'll be on the D line.
Hmm.
Vernon Butler, another D line guy. Taiwan Jones and EJ Gaines, who are both former Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, Taiwan Jones. That's funny.
who ended
Who
our
had the?
season last
Yeah.
year. Craziest play ever from Deshaun Watson. But overall, I mean, I think that's a really solid class. I think they addressed a lot of issues.
Hmm.
Whereas, we had a lot on the D line, cornerback, get more linebacker depth, and we still have the draft. So it's like I think Brandon Beane, he had a really good first couple days in free agency and filled voids. And I don't know who's someone who sticks out that you're really looking forward to next year.
I'd have to say Quentin Jefferson,
Yeah.
just because we're losing Jordan Phillips to the Cardinals, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But Jordan Phillips had 9.5 sacks last year, and I mean, quite possibly one of the best seasons of his career. And we're bringing in a guy who's been proven more than Jordan Phillips. So I'm really excited to see him get on that D line and that rotation with him and Ed Oliver and all the other
Harrison
guys.
Phillips will be
Yeah.
healthy
Harris.
this year.
Oh, I totally forgot about him coming back from
Yeah.
the ACL. That will be
Yeah.
huge boost back, more
Yeah.
bodies.
Yeah.
So
I
I,
think
I
we have
think,
good rotation there.
yeah, I think that'll be a good rotation. So I'm really looking forward to him getting on the field and kind of muddying the waters and the holes. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say the same thing. Quentin Jefferson. I think, maybe Josh Norman, Mario Addison, both Carolina Panthers with Sean McDermott over there. I think with Norman, it is worrisome that he's probably on the tail end of his career. However, I know in Washington he was in a lot of man coverage, and Bills play a lot of zone, and
Yeah.
McDermott does really well building, cornerbacks. So it is. I was, a little hesitant. It's a big name that I think he brings a good attitude, and he'll compete. And I think you can never have enough of those guys. I don't think he's has his best football ahead of him, but as long as he can fill in, like I don't really think he'll be our number 2 cornerback. At least I hope
Yeah.
not. But I think he's provides good depth and leadership. And then Mario Addison is another one who's. I mean, he's 32 years old, but the guy's just produced every single year,
Yeah.
especially the past 4 years. Let me pull up his stats real quick. So Mario Addison had 9.5 sacks last year, 9 the year before that, 11 the year before that, and 9.5 the year before that.
Oh,
So
man's a machine. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, from going back to 2016, he was 29 years old, and ever since then he's had at least 9 sacks every single season, and
Wow.
that's huge.
Yeah, just
So
that fills the void of losing Phillips with just sack
yeah,
numbers
oh,
total
totally.
and
I mean, if we
everything.
can, I would be happy with like 6 sacks from him. Like
Yeah.
I still think we have players we could add on the defensive line, like the end specifically. But I think that was good, solid pickup.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I just overall like just talking in general with everybody, I think we addressed the position that we kind of lost somebody because we just lost Kevin Johnson to the Browns, so
Yeah.
we need Josh Norman to step in. Losing Phillips, Jefferson, and then Addison could also probably play interior as well if you want.
Yeah.
And then also,
We signed EJ
losing,
Gaines today.
yeah,
Thursday.
losing Lorenzo Alexander, we got AJ Klein to come in. So we addressed all those positions that we lost some veteran guys in, and that's huge signing veteran guys to those positions, and
Totally.
as opposed to drafting them. So
Totally. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot to like from this free agency, and it's not over. I mean, we're still going to be signing guys. I guess my last thing as far as maybe needs would be I still think we need a running back. I think Singletary is great, but I would love to see either a two-headed monster. I would even love three guys back there that could tote the rock and just swap in and out, keep everybody fresh,
yeah,
keep Singletary fresh. There's a couple guys left in free agency that might be a good fit, like Devonta Freeman from the Falcons and Carlos Hyde. But they also could add somebody in the draft. Again, they're still, a long time until the season, so
yeah.
I don't think that running back room is close to being finished. But something to keep in mind maybe moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's probably, if I have to just think, we'll probably address in the draft. But I also want to hit on, I don't think we touched on it, signing Quentin Spain back, re-signing him to a 3-year deal. The guy didn't give up a sack last year. That's definitely a guy you want back on your line. Yeah, Mitch Morse, his quote on the Bills' continuity at the offensive line, it just kind of puts it in perspective. Like, he's never played with such a stable group of guys and, not that many changes in the offseason. So that's awesome coming back for Josh, having like a stable set of guys that he can trust in front of him, build his confidence even more. So that's a huge re-signing. He's like the cornerstone piece of our offensive line for sure.
Yeah, no, I anytime you can bring back your entire offensive line year to year, like that's huge, and that's I mean, they're going to grow stronger together, like you're just saying, the continuity. But then Josh will also, just knowing he can trust those guys. Like you said, Quentin Spain didn't give up a single sack last year. So anytime you can bring back all 5 of your offensive linemen is great. It's beyond
great day.
yeah. Josh and Brandon Bean are certainly happy with that. Awesome. So I guess where we move next is, where does this put the Bills for 2020? I mean, they're coming off a first-round playoff loss to the Texans. They added key pieces, including number one receiver, which, like you mentioned at the top, we were clamoring for all season. We're like, man, and then that wide receiver room could possibly be, one of the top trios in the NFL.
Yeah, I saw a stat that both Diggs and John Brown were the only 2 receivers with over 1,000 yards, or we're the only 2 duos on one team now with over 1,000 yards. So,
that's big. That's great. So where are your expectations for 2020 for these Buffalo Bills?
Well, I gotta admit, they're looking at their schedule, going off the strengths of last year's teams, and now that we're playing the NFC West, like our crossover division. I think that's a tough division, especially from last year, if they're going to have like the same strength. All 3 of the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Rams all could have made the playoffs last year. So there are going to be those are 3 tough games right there. Play the Steelers again. But as in just AFC East terms, this is our division, man. This is the year that you come out and make a statement without Tom Brady in the league. I mean, it shouldn't have mattered before, but like this is really just, you should sell out for this year and kind of like prove your dominance, like prove that this is your league for the next so and so years. This is your statement year, in my opinion, and I assume that we're gonna have a really good time in the AFC East, but then again, those other games might not stack up well for our team, but just in the AFC East, this is our division to lose.
Right. I mean, you think about it. So, like you mentioned, we got a pretty tough schedule just looking at it. Got the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Rams, Seahawks,
Hmm.
Steelers.
Yeah.
Cardinals are going to be a lot better. We got to play the Titans, Niners, like Broncos. Even shoot. There's a lot. There's a lot. There's going to be a lot of tough games next year. But luckily for us, the AFC East has to play all of those same teams. So it's like
Yeah.
if you can go 4-2, 5-1, 6-0 in the AFC East, I don't really think those other games are going to matter too much because I mean, even at like 9-7, if they went 9-7, I think I would be pretty happy.
Yeah.
And because that could win them the AFC East still.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tough teams that the AFC East is going to have to play.
Yeah.
So that makes those head-to-head division matchups even more important.
Hmm.
And like you just said, like Brady's are the AFC East. We don't really know where the Patriots are, but the Dolphins made a lot of moves. We'll talk about those, and the Jets solidified their O-line. But I really still think the Bills are in just the perfect spot right now to take over, and we'll see. There's a lot to be optimistic about for the Bills heading into 2020.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to put it in terms, the Patriots were at their plateau last year. The Bills were on the way up. The Jets were at the bottom coming up, and the Dolphins were just at actually the bottom.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
if that in terms of that kind of sequence, so now the Patriots fell off. Now it's our void to come up and get. So
yeah.
I definitely totally agree with that. Vegas actually has their over under is 9 wins. So I don't know. I'm probably just gonna press for 9-7 to 10-6. Yeah, I definitely could see them being 9-7 or 10-6 best. So we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, we definitely can win the division at 9-7, like you said. So.
Yeah, and I mean this, just because we have these tough games doesn't mean we can't win some of these tough
Oh
games.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's
So
going to show us that we're that good of a team is
right,
winning some of those tough games.
right, totally. Yeah, I mean there's got to be a lot of, like I said, optimism, but also a lot of pressure for the Bills to live up to those expectations this year.
Hmm.
All right, so we talked about the Bills for quite a little bit. Let's move on to some top free agency moves. I think we've been touching on it a little bit before, but I think we got to start with possibly, in my mind, probably in yours too, the greatest quarterback of all time goes from his dynasty with the Patriots to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have a lot of key pieces around him that I think will suit him well. They have a really good defense. I would think if they didn't throw 30 picks, if Jameis Winston didn't throw 30 picks last year, I would think they would have been a playoff team.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, if you're Brady, although it's a tough division, you got to you got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They probably should bring in a running back, but then the defense. I mean, they got a lot of players on defense. Devin White, Ndamukong Suh. I don't know, I'm blanking on others, but there's a good foundation for Brady to step right in and possibly lead them to the playoffs.
Yeah, I totally agree. First off, I found the move just out of the blue. It
Yeah.
was just I couldn't pick a more of a random team, but
Were you
I was
expecting him to go back to the Patriots?
no, I was expecting him to go to the Chargers.
Yeah.
Just
I like.
following the property sales.
Yeah.
That's how they figured out LeBron was going to the Lakers.
Right.
I was really tracking that, and they had a
Right.
place in L.A. and I was really assuming he was going to go to the Chargers. But with that being said, I know you have a pretty out there take, and I think the viewers would like to hear what you have to
So
think about.
yeah, here's a bold prediction I have. Listen, I think the move makes sense for Brady. I think he wants to still he can still play, and maybe he wants to prove that he can win without Belichick, sort of thing. But I don't necessarily think that the Bucs got better just by bringing Tom Brady. I think Bruce Arians' system requires a lot of downfield passing, a lot of intermediate passing, and Jameis Winston was throwing it all over the field. And Jameis Winston, even though he has 30 picks, he still threw for 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns. I mean, those are really impressive numbers. And last year when I was watching Brady, I just didn't feel like he had that same zip that even Winston has. I think he can dink and dunk it all the time, but I don't know that really plays all too well in the Bruce Arians' current offense. Maybe they adjusted for him. But anyway, so my bold prediction is that especially with the division they play in, that this move. I don't think the Bucs get past 8-8. They were 7-9 last year. I don't think they get past 8-8, and I don't think they get into the playoffs, even with Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of out there. Like, a lot of people are completely opposite of you, and I'm not going to say I completely.
So are you writing them as Super Bowl champs or what?
No, well, I'm not going to completely disagree with what you say. I agree with some points, like I agree with him coming in, dinking and dunking, and dump off passes aren't probably going to do the trick. But there is a sense of an aura around him, and it's like I'm pretty sure Schefter tweeted it, the LeBron effect, like when he went to Miami, like guys are gonna be different around there.
Yeah.
Just even guys you have on the roster, like he's gonna change it. He's single-handedly gonna change the culture there, and I think that's kind of what they needed. I mean, if you think about it, you talk about all these stats and Jameis and all that. You could put on Jameis, but in the sense it's a culture around it. Like nobody expected. Nobody was like, oh, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're gonna be a team to watch this year. No, like he put up all those numbers and everyone was shocked. Like
Yeah.
Tom Brady's gonna come in and he's like that tweet that all he wanted was his players' numbers. He didn't care about wearing number 12 or anything. And I'm not trying to say that bow down to him but I mean, there's an aura that comes with him, and just guys are like, wow, that is really Tom Brady. He's my teammate now. And I think that the culture change is going to be what is most important. I don't per se see them doing well, in making the playoffs, being 11-5 or 12-4. Right. But I could see them, fringe team getting in or out, being the last seed in, and who knows. But
yeah.
I think him going to that division, he's got a lot to prove, especially with those three teams in there. And it's not like it's going to be the AFC East every year where they could almost write it off as a win for them.
Yeah, no, totally. I think there's I think there's a lot of opportunity. Like, I could also, I guess I'm just going to counter my last point, but I could also see them, sliding in, maybe winning the division. Although I still like the Saints to win the division, but there's a wild card team. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if this isn't if they don't improve versus Winston. Maybe they win a couple more games than they did last year, just because they have 20 less turnovers, but. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how it'll mesh. I'm very curious. All right, so we talked a lot about Tom Brady. There were a lot of other big signings. Yeah. Most notably, I think the biggest trade happened was between the Cardinals and the Texans, where the Cardinals acquired DeAndre Hopkins in exchange for David Johnson and a second-round pick and a fourth-rounder next year. That is a huge, huge move for the Cardinals. I'm not quite sure what Bill O'Brien was thinking when he made that trade.
He's strong, bro.
I don't know. I mean, what do you think DeAndre Hopkins adds to the Cardinals' offense?
Oh, he adds the same effect as Stephon Diggs probably does to the Bills. Yeah. He's that great route runner. He's a deep threat, vertical receiver. He can run over the top, and then they can also have that continuity because Fitz moved into the slot, and you got a veteran guy in the slot who's going to know where to go, going to open up areas for DeAndre Hopkins and vice versa. So it's a great move by Cliff Kingsbury, like completely great for a young quarterback like Kyler Murray. He's got his go-to on the inside, and now he's got a deep threat he can air it out to. But for the Texans, I have no idea what they're doing. Because you just signed Randall Cobb, going to their move. They signed Randall Cobb, and they guarantee him $18 million. And that's a terrible contract for a guy who's a slot receiver who hasn't really put up big numbers since he's been on the Packers, which is a couple years ago. And you have Hopkins, who's kind of in probably the closer to the middle, the end of his prime. You don't give away
still
those.
In his prime.
Yeah, he's still in his prime, and he's an outrageous catcher of the ball, hand catcher. He doesn't drop many, so I don't understand the move. I guess you sacrifice him and get a decent running back. But David Johnson's been hurt past couple seasons a lot and hasn't really produced since that one breakout year he had.
Yeah.
What is your take? Like, what do you value more, having a better running game or like passing game? Because
here's the thing. I don't even think that their running game got too much better. I mean, they're obviously going to let go of Carlos Hyde. They let go of him. They have Duke Johnson and David Johnson. I feel like those guys are very similar skill set. You know, as far as pass catchers, I guess David Johnson can run it a little better. But then you give up your number one receiver, possibly the greatest receiver in the NFL right now. I mean, it's just like, and you don't even get a first round pick for it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Stephon Diggs got a first round pick, and DeAndre Hopkins was the only 99 receiver in Madden at the start of the year. I just didn't understand that.
I don't get it. I don't think anyone can really explain it. I guess maybe, you're clearing up some cap space by not having to, sign him to a big contract. But I mean, to not even get a first round pick back is, it's criminal. The Cardinals robbed him.
Just like a guy like Hopkins, he doesn't make much noise, like with bad decisions or anything off the field, and he's really had a good chemistry with Deshaun Watson. I mean, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm pissed. Like, I'm gonna go up to Bill O'Brien and be like, "Yo, what are you doing? Like, I need this guy downfield."
Yeah.
I mean, he made some great catches against the Bills in the playoff game, and Trey White had a great first half on him, but he freaking dusted him a couple times in the second half, and really was like the kind of the started the ball rolling for them in the second half. So, I mean, but great move for Arizona. You kind of got rid of David Johnson because he kind of has he's got a bad contract, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
A pretty big contract. So, and they just signed Trent and Jake. So, yeah. Right. So we're on the same page, but. Yeah, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury is kind of establishing that West Coast offense, which I kind of like. He's kind of putting the pieces around Kyler that are going to make him successful, as opposed to just kind of like making the team successful. He's going right for Kyler Murray's kind of go-tos.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that was probably the biggest move yet. But we're going down the list here of, some other notable moves. The Falcons got Dante Fowler and Todd Gurley. I think those are two huge upgrades for them.
Oh, yeah, that is.
The Falcons have 11 first-round starters on offense, which is the whole team, which is incredible. Todd Gurley, Matt Ryan, and Julio Jones. I don't think you can name a better trio. But we'll see if Todd Gurley can even hold up. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that ailing knee, which definitely affected him in Los Angeles. But like in a whole. Like he's an upgrade from Devontae Freeman, so you got to make that move, and that's his hometown, so it'll be pretty cool for him. He'll probably have some cool motivations.
Totally. The Ravens revamped their D line that was already pretty good. They got Calais Campbell in the trade, Michael Brockers, and then they added Jimmy Smith, or they re-signed Jimmy Smith. They're going to be again a scary team. You got Lamar. I do think they need a number one receiver, a true number one. You got Marquise Brown, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to add another receiver, playmaker for him.
My hot take for them is they probably have the most complete defense in the NFL, especially after getting Marcus Peters halfway through the year. I mean, that just sent them over the top in the secondary, and now they got Calais Campbell, who's just a beast.
Yeah.
So that I definitely think they're poised to have a great defensive year, and then barring whatever happens on offense with Lamar Jackson, which I assume nothing more than incredible stuff. But
they're a scary team in the AFC for sure. And we got the Panthers, Teddy Bridgewater. They released Cam Newton. They're rolling with Bridgewater this year. They made a couple other moves. I think that's probably the most notable one. Maybe Robbie Anderson too. Your opinion, would you take Teddy Bridgewater over Cam Newton at this point?
That's a tough call. I think we had a good dialogue before this. If you're rebuilding, why would you sign a guy like Teddy Bridgewater per se instead of drafting a guy?
Well, it's just like, what direction are they trying to go?
Yeah, it's kind of like ambiguous, but Teddy Bridgewater, he's kind of up in the air. He had those good years in Minnesota before he got hurt. But then you got to think, the Saints didn't choose him over Taysom Hill, who's my guy. I love Taysom
Yeah.
Hill. But seriously, like they didn't choose him over him, and he played lights out in New Orleans. So it's kind of going to be weird. Yeah, but Teddy Bridgewater, I think he's a way different quarterback than Cam Newton. So I mean, it's definitely a different direction. So I can see that they're going to go to a guy who is going to take under center snaps, stay in the pocket.
And a
But
fresh start too.
yeah,
New
and
coach.
yeah, Cam Newton's not really that Matt Rule's guy,
Yeah.
and he's coming off an injury. It's like the kind of the perfect time to cut ties.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I could see them maybe drafting a quarterback in the late round maybe. But
Yeah.
you also signed PJ Walker, who's Matt Rule's guy from Temple, and
Yep.
PJ Walker is playing really good in the XFL. I'm not gonna
And
lie,
then
like you.
they still got Will Greer, who they drafted last year.
Yeah,
I think they just traded Kyle Allen to the
yeah, to the
Redskins. So
Redskins. Yeah,
yeah, it should be interesting whatever happens with that QB room and just sort of the direction they take. Because
yeah.
I mean, but then you got Luke Kuechly who retired.
Who retired? That's huge.
But I mean, you have probably the best overall back in the game in Christian McCaffrey. So it's like,
yeah, most complete back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have some decent pieces on offense. It'll just be, I'll just be curious what happens with that QB room. So Chicago Bears, they solidified a couple backup spots and added on the D line. Most notably, probably Nick Foles at quarterback. Traded for him. I don't know, quick hitter. But do you like Nick Foles or Trubisky to start day one next year?
Trubisky. I think that rumor that he would not start Trubisky is false, but I could definitely see some Foles action in the season if they start struggling. 100%.
No, I totally agree. And I really like probably one of the most underrated pickups, Robert Quinn on the edge, aside from Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
On the other side of Khalil Mack. I mean, those two are probably the top duo pass rushers that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's a huge acquisition, and they'll be poised to have a good defensive line, just a complete team or a complete defense as usual. So it really just comes down, I guess, the quarterback, like it is the last year and everything.
Yeah. So moving down the list, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought they added a few pretty key players, including DJ Reader, who was probably the top D tackle available. They signed some DBs, Mackenzie Alexander, Trey Waynes, and Von Bell, as well as re-signing AJ Green. They got the first pick. I think they honestly added a lot of key pieces on that defensive side.
Yeah, I really like Trey Waynes and Von Bell. Those two guys are really proven guys in this league. And DJ Reader, I mean, he's gonna tear stuff up in the inside. So that's huge, especially coming off a season like they did to get some guys, some names like that.
Yeah.
And then you'll have Joe Burrow, which I mean everyone I think is assuming they'll pick. So they're going in a kind of good direction. I think these guys probably signed because they knew Joe Burrow was gonna hopefully be the guy. So
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow's got some weapons on offense still.
Yeah. Well, he said if they picked him, he wanted AJ Green there. So that's why they definitely didn't shop him. They definitely could have gotten some stuff for him.
Totally. The Browns, they signed probably the top tight end on the market, Austin Hooper, Jack Conklin on the tackle, Kevin Johnson, who we touched on earlier, and Case Keenum as backup quarterback. Maybe talk about Hooper, what having another tight end for the Browns could do for Baker Mayfield.
Tight end, like I stressed it this year with the Bills, we didn't really utilize him much, but tight end is really like that's kind of your guy, play action all the time. He's going to allow for some quick passes. And Hooper's smart and he's athletic, so he'll be able to run the seams, open up the middle a little bit more, which will be way better for Baker. I think it's just overall he's just a good pickup. With the new direction that the Browns are going in with their new GM. So I definitely think I like that. And Case Keenum coming in because like Baker got hurt last year and you had to put in Garrett Gilbert as your backup. It doesn't really work out so well. So that'll be also, having a solid backup for Baker, but it also could be his downfall if he starts playing like crap like he did last year. So we'll see. I do like the moves that the Browns definitely did though.
The Cowboys, they beefed up the D-line with Gerald McCoy, Dontari Poe. They also re-signed a couple key players on offense. including Amari Cooper, who had a 5-year, $100 million contract. And then at QB, they placed franchise tag on Dak Prescott. And my understanding is they're currently in negotiations again with Dak to sign him long term. So I don't know. Anything you want to touch on with the Cowboys?
I don't want to hit on Dak Prescott until the final things come on. But I love Poe and McCoy.
Yeah.
Just two big boys right in the middle.
Yeah.
That's going to make them that much better, especially having those two athletic guys right behind them and Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch. So I'm excited to see if they, because they had a lot of sacks last year. So I'm excited to see if they ramp up their sacks this year.
Yeah. Yeah, they did lose Robert Quinn, though. So something to keep in mind. But I do like those D-tackle pickups. Broncos, I actually sneaky really like what they did. They traded for Jarrell Casey, which was an absolute steal. They traded a 7th-round pick to the Titans for him. Then they picked up A.J. Boye at cornerback to go. He's probably the number 1 cornerback now. And then they also picked up Melvin Gordon and then got one of the top guards, Graham Gaswell. I really like their moves. I guess maybe touch on Melvin Gordon. What do you think he adds to their offense?
Well, he adds that that number 1 guy, and Melvin Gordon can play out of the backfield, catching the pass as well. So that also helps with him and Philip Lindsay, both going to be taking turns with the ball. Glasgow is huge because you're basically solidifying your O-line for Drew Lock, which is awesome because hopefully he comes out healthy and can start slinging it, but not against the Bills though. But Jarrell Casey, he absolutely was a stud during the playoffs. That is a great pickup by them.
Think about their D-line.
Yeah.
Bradley Chubb comes back from ACL.
Vaughn.
You got obviously Von Miller, and now you got Jarrell Casey. I mean, that might be the best D-line in football, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah, so I really like their pickups for this offseason.
Yeah. The Lions. Lions signed a bunch of former Patriots, including Jamie Collins, Jerron Harmon, Danny Shelton. Sure, I'm missing another one. But, I think they added, probably fixed their needs. Matt Patricia brings in a couple guys he knows, head coach previously. I don't know, anything stick out to you, or should we move on?
And I kind of like Chase Daniels coming in as a backup, especially with Stafford missing half the year this year, or over half the year, or whatever. And it's a guy who can actually come in and win games to keep your playoff hopes alive. So I like that move. Like, it's not really the biggest one out of all of them, but Jamie Collins obviously is a freak athlete, and he should be doing well under the system that Patricia has from the Patriots. So
overall. And actually, I skipped over Desmond Trufant. They did trade Darius Slay, but they got a good cornerback in Trufant. I don't know. Moving on to the Packers, they signed Christian Kirksey, linebacker from the Browns, and Devin Funchess. Not too much from the Packers so far, but I think Devin Funchess, when healthy, I think he was out all last year, I believe, with a collarbone or something shoulder area.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big target though. He was pretty decent with Cam Newton back in Carolina, and then Kirksey, again, another guy I think falls under the same injury-prone, label. But Christian Kirksey, I believe it was like 2 years ago. I mean, he was like the Browns stud linebacker, like 150 tackles. If those guys can stay healthy, I think they're pretty good pickups.
Yeah, I'm really in love with the Funchess. You get the more playmakers around Aaron Rodgers, the better.
Totally.
I'm still a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. Yeah, Christian Kirksey. I know a couple Buffalo Bills were trying to recruit him to come there, and I was kind of hoping so. But, I think that just solidifies him in there, replacing Blake Martinez, who went to the Giants. So that'll work out well for a replacement for him.
Yeah. All right. Let's skip over the Texans since we touched on them earlier with the trade of David Johnson. They didn't really make any other notable moves. The Colts traded for DeForest Buckner. They traded a first-round pick, number 13 overall, for DeForest Buckner. He, is a beast in the middle. Had a great year last year. They also got Anthony Costanzo and most notably Phillip Rivers, who is going to come in there. I'm assuming they're going to get rid of Brissett. But this is Philip Rivers' team now for at least 1 year. Hopefully, I heard on NFL Network that they were trying to get him for another year or two. He sees this as a long-term move. Do you think Philip Rivers fits in well with that offense and those pieces around him?
Yeah, I think he's got a good cast around him. I think he's got a good running back in Marlon Mack, and he's got his receivers around him.
T.Y. Hilton,
yeah, T.Y. Hilton. And I really think that he's on the decline and he's not a long-term option, which, he might try to, stay around for longer. But
yeah,
I think a 1-year deal with him is good. See where he's at, see how he plays. And then if not, keep signing him to 1-year deals. I mean, he's that old. I think 1-year deals would be good for him. Yeah. And I'm interested in Frank Wright is going to be as the play caller, so quarterback mind. So I'm sure he'll have a scheme in there for him. But I think you touched over they got Xavier Rhodes, cornerback from Vikings, and I think he used to be one of the best guys, and that's just
similar to Josh Norman.
Josh Norman,
they both sort of declined, but I mean, maybe a good depth move for them. So Jaguars, they tagged Yannick Ngakoue. He is probably their best player. I think they're going to trade him because he has made it clear on Twitter that
abundantly clear he doesn't want to play there.
Be there. Tyler Eifert, I think they signed a couple days ago. If he can stay healthy, I mean, maybe that would be a good pickup for them. Maybe Joe Schobert too. I don't know. What do you want to say about them?
Their culture sucks, and they're losing so many players and not getting replacements back. So that will definitely show this year. They will be terrible.
Yeah. Chiefs, not many moves from the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Re-signed Chad Henne to back up Patrick Mahomes. Damian Williams, they picked up their option. And Chris Jones, they franchise tagged him. I don't really think there's much to talk about there. So we can move to the Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas. They actually had quite a busy offseason. At quarterback, they addressed backup, maybe starter, with Marcus Mariota. They also brought in Jason Witten, Carl Nassib, Corey Littleton, Eli Apple, and Nelson Aguilar. I mean, those are all, I feel like, pretty middle of the pack, guys.
They're like your off-brand guys. But like, in a sense, it kind of works out. Like, as many off-brand guys might make you a little bit better. Sure. And to the point, they almost made the playoffs this year, so... Yeah. And having Jason Witten just overall, it's like the Tom Brady kind of aura to him. Like walking in the place, there's going to be so many players like taking leadership from him, which is definitely a good move for John Gruden and keeping that locker room pretty stable.
Yeah, they got a lot of tight ends in that tight end room, so we'll see how that works out. The Chargers obviously are moving on from Philip Rivers. But they did sign Austin Eckler to a new contract. Probably their most notable acquisition was Chris Harris coming from the Broncos. I still think he has a lot of good football left to play. They also signed Linval Joseph, big D tackle in the middle, and Brian Bulaga to give him another right. I believe he plays right tackle. So solidify that O-line for whoever, maybe Tyrod Taylor.
That'd be cool. I think Tyrod could play for them and lead them to a ton of wins. But Chris Harris is a really good signing because I think he's out to prove that, because he wasn't getting the deal from Denver because they thought he was too old. So I think he's really he's out to prove something for everybody, and I think we should look out for that.
Yeah. Moving on to the Rams, the other team in Los Angeles. They let go of Dante Fowler, but they did sign Leonard Floyd. A'Shawn Robinson, they re-signed Andrew Whitworth. They don't have much, and they let go of Todd Gurley, I guess, most notably. They didn't have much cap room until they let go of Todd Gurley, so maybe some more moves coming from them. Anything stick out to you?
I think it was good moves letting those guys go and stop choking yourself on the cap, because they didn't really have much to work with, and they kind of don't really have any picks either because they give those up for all those trades. But yeah, I think they're in the stage where they're kind of trying to rekindle their losses and just kind of get some air to breathe, some room to breathe. So I think these are solid picks.
Yeah. Side note, did you see their new logo?
Yeah, it's terrible.
You think it's terrible?
I like the one version that a meme person made with the with the ram in the LA Rams logo. I thought that was kind
Yeah.
of
Oh, I
way
saw that.
cooler.
I thought you were gonna say the lame one, but yeah,
Oh
I did see that.
no.
That one's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's almost too modern for the
Yeah.
NFL.
It's like, why change something that really was like he didn't really need to
Yeah.
change?
No, I thought I liked their logo from before. All right, moving on to the Dolphins. Dolphins, AFC East guys. They made a lot of moves, some pretty good ones in my mind. I'll touch on a few. Eric Flowers, they moved him to guard. He did really well last year at guard with the Redskins. Jordan Howard at running back. Byron Jones, cornerback. Our guy Shaq Lawson, Emmanuel Ogba, and probably the best out of the whole bunch, Kyle Van Noy, who I loved from New England. I just thought he was so versatile, and he was always feel like wreaking havoc on the Bills for however long it was. But what do you like from the Dolphins pickups?
I think Brian Flores has that Matt Patricia recruiting effect because he's
Yeah,
got a lot of his Patriots guys coming. But I mean, he's a defensive guy, and he just got Kyle Van Noy and Byron Jones, who many think Byron Jones is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So, I mean, those are two huge acquisitions that will poise them to be pretty decent in the upcoming year, especially on defense.
yeah, yeah. I think they needed to make a bunch of moves, and they made some pretty good ones in my mind. All right, moving on to the Vikings, who obviously traded Stephon Diggs to the Bills. Looking down the list here, Tajay Sharp at receiver, maybe to fill that Stephon Diggs trade. Michael Pierce, he was, I believe, with the Ravens. That's pretty good signing on the D
Yeah, I
line.
mean, out of all these guys, he's probably the biggest. I mean, and I don't even think he's on the tail end of his career, and I don't really think he's. They also have Anthony Barr, so I mean, they have a pretty decent defense. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, we'll see where Everson Griffin goes too. Their D lineman. Moving on to the Patriots. Obviously, most notably, Tom Brady left, signed with the Bucs. They haven't made a ton of moves, but they do have Bo Allen, a D tackle, probably filling the void of Danny Shelton. Brian Hoyer signed with them. So that QB room right now is Stidham, Hoyer. There's one other that I can't really think of, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with that in the future.
I mean, they gotta be poised to be picking up a quarterback in the draft. I mean, are you really gonna go through the year as Brian Hoyer? You just let Tom Brady go. Jared Stidham or freaking yeah.
Could you see Cam Newton or Jameis Winston going there?
That's tough. I mean, I could see Cam Newton going there and just basically like proving everybody wrong. Like, hey, I'm with Belichick now. I'm just gonna dominate too. But I don't know. It'll be up in the air. But I mean, for losing as much as they did, I don't think they really rekindled their losses as well.
No, I know. And I mean, they didn't really have that many offensive pieces to begin with, especially at tight end and receiver. So I don't know. Hey, good for us. I'll take it. So the Saints re-signed Drew Brees and Taysom Hill. They got Malcolm Jenkins from the Eagles, who let him go, and they're bringing him back. He was drafted by the Saints a while back. Andres Pete, one of the best tackles in football. They re-signed him to a big contract, and they brought in Emmanuel Sanders. What do you see from the Saints?
Emmanuel Sanders coming in is pretty cool. That's just going to be another duo for Michael Thomas on the other side, which is awesome. Yeah. Taysom Hill, I love him. So I'm glad they re-signed him. But yeah, just OT, get your Andres Pete back. Always having your offensive line come back, familiar faces is always really nice especially for veteran quarterbacks like Drew Brees. So protect the fragile.
Yeah, and I still like them in that NFC South. I think they got a lot of pieces there. But I do like that Emmanuel Sanders trade. I think that's underrated. You brought up having him, in the slot and just taking, giving Drew Brees another option when Michael Thomas is doubled and stuff like that. So New York Giants, looking down the list here, Blake Martinez, who you talked about earlier, James Bradbury at corner. It's one of the top corners on the market. They re-signed Leonard Williams and brought in Colt McCoy to back up Daniel Jones with Eli Manning retiring.
I think getting Bradbury there and that there's something lacking in the secondary for the Giants this past year, that's going to be a huge asset for them, getting Ebner too, just some more depth. And then Martinez, I guess not a lot of people like the move, but I always thought Blake Martinez was a pretty good stud in Green Bay, so that will be a good piece in the middle to kind of build off of for sure.
I think maybe it was just Giants fans. We can ask Jackson. Jackson, if you're watching, let us know your thoughts. But I think they just wanted a bigger name maybe at linebacker.
Yeah, that's true.
Like a Corey Littleton or something like that. New York Jets, they added a lot of pieces on their O-line, including George Fant at tackle, Alex Lewis, Connor McGovern, and Greg Van Roten. I think maybe Fant is probably the biggest name out of those guys. I think they're sort of doing what the Bills did last year, just adding, a lot of pieces, interchangeable pieces.
Yeah.
Trying to find, because let's be honest, they had a terrible O-line last year.
Yeah.
So just trying to solidify that O-line for Sam Darnold.
And they see the success the Bills had with just not being flashy, just something like an ugly offseason, just getting the big guys down. Yeah. And it works. Getting that depth is huge for a quarterback.
Yeah, they also added a couple guys on defense too, including Pierre Desir, who was let go by the Colts. Sorry, at cornerback. I thought that was a great pickup because I wanted him on the Bills. And then also Patrick, I'm gonna butcher this, but Onawuasor, linebacker. He was with the Ravens. I believe he started for the Ravens last year. So those are maybe two under the radar signings that they had. But yeah, we'll see with the Jets. The Jets are still the Jets. The Eagles made probably the biggest move was trading for Darius Slay from the Lions. We all know how bad that secondary was. With releasing Malcolm Jenkins, they're going to move Jalen Mills to safety, and they also signed Nickel Roby-Coleman. I think their biggest thing was addressing that secondary, and I really like the acquisition of Darius Slay.
Veteran guy coming in off of a big season. He's gonna make a splash. That was like you said, the main thing that just absolutely gouged them every game was just getting passed all over. So I really like that pick, for sure.
I still think the Eagles need to add some playmakers on offense. They have Alshon Jeffrey, but he was hurt a lot last year. They have Nelson Aguilar, who was signed by the Raiders. Running backs, they lost Jordan Howard. They still have Miles Sanders, but I don't think Carson Wentz necessarily has enough weapons. I definitely think they're going to go receiver in the draft and probably try to add another running back for them.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's the one thing that they're definitely missing is that just that number one guy. Alshon Jeffrey used to be it, but I don't think anymore. And they just need that one guy. They're playing with Greg Ward, who was a quarterback in college, as a receiver in the playoffs. So yeah, that just shows they need some depth. They just need to sign some receivers.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't signed anybody yet. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, they signed Derek Watt, bringing in another Watt brother at fullback, Eric Ebron at tight end, Chris Wormley, acquired in a trade with the Ravens. So not a lot of huge moves. I think Ebron maybe gives Ben, another tight end piece. Ben coming back though healthy, that'll be huge for the Steelers.
Yeah, Eric Ebron had a great year a couple of years ago, and he kind of plateaued a little bit last year. But having a quarterback is what he thrives with. So like when Andrew Luck came back, he was just absolutely tearing it up. But then when Jacoby Brissett was his quarterback, he was kind of not really a factor. So it's all about a guy who trusts his tight ends, and Ben definitely with Heath Miller throughout those years likes his tight end. So I think that's a good pickup for them.
For sure. The 49ers, they re-signed Eric Armstead to a huge 5-year, $85 million contract. Also signed Travis Benjamin and re-signed Jimmy Ward. They did trade DeForest Buckner for that first-round pick to the Colts. So now they have 2 first-round picks. I actually really liked that move for the Niners. They weren't going to be able to
afford all those guys. Yeah,
exactly. They're going to have to pay them all at some point. They just did Armstead. So to get 13th overall pick for that, I think, is huge. And they can,
Oh yeah.
I don't know what way they're going to go, but they can go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, they have I definitely think they'll draft a D lineman in one of those picks, and maybe they'll trade back. But yeah, they'll definitely be looking for the defensive side for that pick for sure.
And Seattle Seahawks, most notably, probably Greg Olsen they brought in. They re-signed a couple of their own guys, including Bruce Irvin, Teron Reed, and they traded for Quentin Dunbar, and then also signed Philip Dorsett over the weekend. I think the Seahawks, I mean, they were in a really good spot last year. I think they're knocking on the door. I don't know what's going to happen with Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know if he's going to re-sign with him or not. But I still think, I mean, anytime you have Russell Wilson, you're, primed to make a, run at the playoffs sort of thing. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think just having more, like I said earlier, having more weapons around him, like for Aaron Rodgers, but for Russell Wilson, like Dorsett is a underneath guy. He can run laterally pretty good. And then getting Quentin Dunbar definitely will help them with their depth and making sure, because they had a few injuries in their secondary towards the end of the year, so that'll help give them some more depth and moving on. And Greg Olsen, I think he's still got like 2 or 3 years left, man. Like I think he's a solid pickup. Yeah. The Bills really wanted him, and I just think he's a really solid pickup.
Yeah, great.
I think
obviously great.
He'll be utilized well. Russell Wilson
sure.
will utilize him well for sure.
Yeah. And we sort of touched on the Bucs with Tom Brady, but they also re-signed a lot of key defensive linemen, including Shaq Barrett, who had, I believe, 19.5 sacks last year. Jason Pierre-Paul, who I think was double-digit sacks as well. And then Ndamukong Suh. So, they are keeping that D-line together. Scary D-line in my mind. And they also signed Joe Haeg, who's an O-lineman, to a 1-year contract. So yeah. I mean, we touched on it before, but I like what the Bucs are doing. I'm very curious to see how Brady fits into all this. Yeah. But they'll be in a good spot for next year.
I think they're putting the pieces in on the other side of the ball, and I think they feel pretty confident on the offensive side. So yeah, I think everyone in the whole world just wants to see what happens.
How it all meshes together.
Oh yeah.
All right, and wrapping up with the last two here, we got the Tennessee Titans. They franchise tagged Derrick Henry, and they re-signed Ryan Tannehill, their quarterback, to a 4-year, $118 million contract. And then signed Dennis Kelly, and on the D-line, they signed Vic Beasley to a 1-year, $9.5 million contract. I mean, obviously everyone was talking about it going into free agency for the Titans, but getting Tannehill and Derrick Henry back for at least Tannehill for 4 more years, Derrick Henry at least for the next year before they hopefully work something out with him. Those were the two key things going into free agency, and they addressed those.
Yeah, I was 100% backing them bringing Derrick Henry back because he just fits in their system that they had going. Why change something when it worked this year? You know what I mean? Like obviously teams are gonna change their game plans for them, but like it worked well, and let's just keep it going. And I like Tannehill out of the shadow of Gase, the Gase theory. Yep. But yeah, I really do I think this team is kind of like on the verge of being one of the top tier teams in the AFC for like the next couple of years, especially in the AFC South.
Yeah, for sure. I do think, I mean, they had to sign Tannehill, obviously, but once they have to sign Derrick Henry, that's going to be a lot of money to those two guys, and which is why they probably had to trade Jarrell Casey to manage that cap, which is, I think, was a huge loss for the Titans. We'll see how they work without him, but I mean, they're still set if they can continue to play like the way they did down the stretch last year. They'll do all right. And wrapping up with the Washington Redskins, they just traded for Kyle Allen. They signed Peyton Barber, the running back. Kendall Fuller signed a big contract, 4 years, $40 million. I think that is probably their best move. Added some veteran depth with Thomas Davis and let's see, Kevin Pierre-Louis, linebacker, and Brandon Sheriff. They re-signed probably their best O-lineman. So yeah, I mean, there's I feel like they have a good, solid foundation for Ron Rivera in his first season. Any thoughts there?
I'm just curious, like with the way he's gonna go. He's made it pretty ambiguous with the quarterback situation, and if I'm Dwayne Haskins, I'm definitely like kind of like Josh Rosen it was when the Cardinals had that first pick and everyone was like, oh, they're gonna choose Kyler. Like Dwayne Haskins, like it's not a good feeling for him in the offseason to like be like, all right, am I gonna be the guy or they're gonna move on? So it's gonna be interesting.
What would you do with that number 2 pick?
I would probably draft Chase Young.
Yeah. I think
I would. I think you got Dwayne Haskins, and now you got Kyle Allen. So at least you got a guy who's been proven to be able to be a starter.
Yeah.
So you got a guy in case he Dwayne Haskins struggles. But I definitely go with the surefire pick and Chase Young because I mean he's like a talent that's like no other.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think. I don't know what I would do with the Redskins. I think the safe pick is definitely Chase Young, like you just mentioned. I would love, though, if they somehow got Tua out of that and picked him up second and shopped Haskins somewhere else. I don't know. I mean, I sort of look at what the Cardinals did. I understand what they did and why they did it. And I don't know. If you're not sold on Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, if he's not your guy, then it's kind of tough for them to come in and be like, okay, well, I gotta reevaluate you because I don't know you like the other person did.
I mean, who would you rather have, Tua or Dwayne Haskins?
It's tough. I mean, Dwayne Haskins really didn't impress me.
Yeah, neither did.
But like I'm looking at the talent around. It's like it's only his first year, and then we can also get somebody else who's like Chase Young or somebody like that, and be an asset for potentially longer than another quarterback would be, and now you're just stuck with 2 first-round quarterbacks.
Right. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see come draft time. We're gonna do another video before the draft, and maybe give some foreshadowing, some projections, possibly a mock draft or something in there. But that's gonna do it for this free agency roundup. We appreciate you watching all the way through this. We touched on all 32 teams, which is something we didn't plan on doing until we started going through them all.
Yeah.
But I think that was great analysis, and hope you guys took something out of it.
Yeah, I was cool to look through all the teams because we definitely weren't actually planning on doing that, but like looking through all the teams though, it was pretty cool. And it's a pretty big mix up of a year. It's kind of reminds me of NBA offseason last year. A lot of new old faces and new places. So it's going to be really cool to track some of these old guys and see if they still got it in other teams. So I'll be looking forward to that for sure. Hopefully the season gets to starting on time. But
I know. Fingers crossed. I mean, we need some sports.
Yeah, seriously, we're dying over here.
I know. All right, well, that's going to do it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.